The 2017 APEC Economic Leaders Week is underway in the Vietnamese city of Da Nang, where leaders from the world's most dynamic economies, CEOs from across the Asia-Pacific region, as well as some of the most influential voices of this place, are gathering. The theme is creating new dynamism, fostering a shared future. Many hope they would push forward regional economic cooperation and development amid a rising sentiment of anti-globalization and trade protectionism. But how much can we expect? Earlier, I spoke with a panel of experts from the region. Let's hear their views. For more on APEC meetings, we are joined in our Beijing studio, Mr. Zhang Jianping, Director General from the Center for Regional Cooperation with the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. In Washington, D.C., we're honored to be joined by Mr. Charles Freeman III, Managing Director of Bauer Group Asia and also former Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for China Affairs. Welcome. And in Singapore, Mr. Lim Tai Wei, Adjunct Research Fellow at the National University of Singapore. Wow, when it comes to the Asia-Pacific region, a lot of stories going on all at the same time. Mr. Zhang, from your perspective, what are some of the most critical issues that you would anticipate about these meetings among APEC economic leaders?
Yeah, nowadays actually APEC meeting already becomes a very important institutions in the world. Especially for multilateral economic cooperation. So in this regard, how to explore our new driving force in the region, economic growth rate, growth driving force. Meanwhile, how to promote trade and investment, integration and facilitation, and how to make those shared economy in the region, how to promote our, electronic ports. Right. And the global supply chain issues, many.
Well, yeah. Yes, there are a long list of things to be done, but Mr. Freeman, is Mr. Zhang too optimistic for one meeting to achieve all of this?
Well, he's optimistic. I think from a narrow U.S. perspective, United States perspective, I think this is important because this is the first meeting between the sitting U.S. president and significant number of Asian counterparts after the United States has pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. So in many respects, for the U.S. at least, and for those watching the United States, this is an important signal of continued commitment to the region, both economically and otherwise. So I certainly think the stakes are high.
The stakes are high, and people are brainstorming about what kinds of mechanisms this meeting might embrace after all the intense expectations and discussions. Mr. Lim, TPP was only becoming part of it. There was a shrinked version. But the 11 economies seem to be determined to work on it. And yet, there are other different kinds of initiatives going on, proposed by players in the Asia-Pacific region or already implemented partly by some, for example, Belt and Road Initiative, Eurasian Corridor, and RCEP from China, from Russia, and some of the others. So what are going to be the main characters, let's just say, taking place in the conversations there?
I think if you listen to the Vietnamese leaders, who are the organizers of this year's APEC, they have stated three agendas for the meeting. The first agenda is that they want to see more sustainable development to combat climate change, and to have kind of a growth that is inclusive of everyone. The second one that they look at would be innovation and coming up with new technology, and to be able to come up with digital technology and also help different groups of people narrow the gap between them. Now, the third one is much more institutional in nature. He hopes, or the leaders hope, that the free trade agreements can be encouraged in the region, particularly in an era where there are anti-globalization forces. And the institution that he's specifically mentioned, that Vietnamese leaders specifically mentioned, was the free trade area of the Asia Pacific.
Well,
so
Mr. Lim,
so I think the sort of long-term goal is for economies to work together.
Yeah. Well, of course, wishes coming from the host country is one thing. As to what extent the other parties want to join in so-called final achievements is another thing. And whether those goals set by the host are likely to be the goals by the attendees is another question too. So, Mr. Freeman, to the United States, what kind of interactions the president would have with the other parties at the APEC would mean a success back at home?
Well, whether we like it or not, APEC is not given that much attention back here in the United States, much less attention than it should be, frankly. But I do think that this is a president, in President Trump, who is a personality and very personable, and a lot of leaders in the APEC region will not have met him individually yet, and therefore will know him from his Twitter feed or from what they read in the newspaper. And so it's a good opportunity for them to take the measure of the man, and for him likewise to take the measure of his counterparts. This is a president, remember, who campaigned on a platform of unilateralism. And APEC is nothing if not multilateral in its focus. So it'll be an interesting opportunity for all sides.
For all sides to look, particularly when you have the president who prefer bilateral, when you have the president talking about America first, but this is a very multilateral platform. And those who believe in multilateralism would go there too. So, Mr. Freeman, is this going to mean a directional shift, or at least some switching of corners for President Trump?
I hope so. Anybody that has spent time at APEC understands the vibrancy and the opportunity that interacting with that many different economies at once in a multilateral setting can have. And it's a very problem-solving agenda. So it's a very cooperative, very constructive agenda. And therefore, an opportunity for this president and his close staff to see the benefits of multilateralism directly. And I hope, anyway, that they find something to be excited about.
Mr. Zhang, this is the time that Chinese president and the U.S. president are carrying over their achievements being made during the visit by President Trump to China. And this is an interesting testing ground, but also an implementation ground about how the two countries can work together.
Yeah, this is after 19th Party's Congress in China. The first, so important leaders from the U.S. visit China, and two big countries' leaders must to discuss those important global issues, regional issues, and including APEC issues, as well as bilateral economic and trade relationship. Especially, I think that on APEC issues, two countries' leaders need to discuss how to promote APEC economic cooperation and how to explore, economic driving force and how to benefit each other. In this regard, I'm afraid that from Mr. Trump, actually now he pay attention much on bilateral cooperation instead of multilateral cooperation. But we hope that in this region, both bilateral and multilateral cooperation should be appreciated. Meanwhile, I'm afraid that TPP, RCEP, all of those multilateral RTA negotiations also will be deepened on this APEC meeting.
Mr. Freeman, United States has scrapped off, since President Trump comes into the office, some of the bilateral trade deals. Will there be a chance that to resume some of those deals, at least being talked about, that possibility, at the APEC occasion?
Bilateral deals, I'm not sure that the president is in any kind of deal-making mode yet on a policy level. So it will be interesting to see. I mean, I would love to see the China and the United States restore discussions to build a bilateral investment treaty. That does not seem to be on anybody's agenda in Washington, unfortunately. So I think we'll have to wait to see President Trump's reactions to what actually will be a very, very long and very detailed trip to Asia.
That's right.
So we'll see.
How will their spirit of so-called cooperation be tested this time? Or this is likely when it's on a bigger platform. Both sides going to express in their own ways, which might not necessarily coincide with one another. Mr. Zhang.
Yeah, I think that China, U.S., and other members, we should play, a constructive role on platform of APEC. So in this regard, from Chinese side, we hope that, of course, we respect existing cooperation mechanism on platform of APEC. That means in different fields, we have so lot of working groups and trade, investment, growth, innovation, something like that, as well as free trade agreements. On the other hand, from Chinese side, we also provided new idea and new concepts, such as the Belt and Road Initiative. That means we hope APEC cooperation will be more comprehensive. Also, we can reject some of new elements, such as infrastructure connectivities, people-to-people connectivities, and culture exchange, something like that.
Yeah, particularly, Mr. Zhang, this is the very first time, this is the very first multilateral platform meeting point for Chinese President Xi Jinping after the 19th Party Congress. And during the Party Congress report, China was talking about a global community of shared future. China was also talking about the new type of big power relations. China was talking about it providing of solutions and possibly models to the region and beyond. How much will that be demonstrated, Mr. Zhang?
Yeah. I think that bilateral, multilateral, and global cooperation, actually they can promote each other. So in this regard, actually on APEC platform, we can promote both bilateral and multilateral cooperation. And also, for example, if you look at those free trade agreements, bilateral free trade agreements will promote multilateral free trade agreements. But
I see.
Yeah, but for some countries, they prefer to choose bilateral. That's also okay.
Okay, Mr. Freeman, what about your thought?
Well, no, I think at the end of the day, this is going to be an opportunity for all sides to take each other's measure, and I don't foresee tremendous new steps being taken on any individual trade agreement, frankly, in this context. But so I think more of this is about for the U.S. From the U.S. perspective, this is about giving President Trump an opportunity to visit the region, to spend some time getting to know other folks and establish his multilateral credentials, hopefully. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, with that, we're coming to the end of this round of discussion, at least for now. Charles Freeman, Lim Tai Wei, Zhang Jianping. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us.